Good evening, everybody. Last week we had some technical difficulties with the stream, so I'm redoing the session from last time so that it comes out hopefully just fine. So we'll be doing Spline. So these are basically web experiences with 3D objects. So within the editor we could see what this standalone would look like, or essentially how it would look within an embedded block, which I could demonstrate over here on a website I recently built, or an aspect I added to my portfolio site. It's essentially embedding the 3D models in a website in an embed box like this. And you get a little interaction display, and you can do all kinds of different things. So we can take a quick look at some of the example files. Here are all the files that I have laid out. And I think it's best to start from one of the templates, right? So it kind of just kicks off a lot of the lighting and a lot of the, maybe some aspects of the template also that you'd want to copy over into your own objects. I'll show you what I mean. So if we go for the MacBook Pro, for example, it has a darker lit background that already has a color. And if I'm not mistaken, there is no interaction. Excuse me. There's no interaction on this one computer, so we can add one in over here on the right. So these are all your different object properties, and you can import your own models into this interface. Ooh, excuse me, they're holding in a cough. Okay. So we can change the background color here under our scene settings if we have nothing selected. So if I go ahead and click on that, I can make the color lighter, I can change its hue, we can do a range of things. The frame is basically how it gets previewed. So when I hit play, and that embed block that we had in that website example is essentially what's viewed as the frame. So we set the size to responsive, essentially just take up the limits that's set for it, right? Other options are, focus it for TikTok, or focusing it for a Google Pixel, or a specific phone, or for a website. So if we want to do a little animation for social media, we have those different formats here. There's also adding in different cameras. So when I selected that ratio, it already set basically the frame to this size, and we're looking at it through essentially our own camera. So I can move around. And this is actually what's referred to as the personal camera, how we're currently looking at it. But when I hit play, it actually snaps to the active camera, or the set camera. So if I click on that, you'll see there, it's called the default camera in this case. So you can rename it to whatever you'd like, so you can keep track of your different cameras. And you can hit snap to camera, so your view snaps to it. All right, so we can add in some lights. We could do some simulation stuff. So essentially just adding in physics or gravity. So if I hit yes, we're likely to see simulation, physics, yes, gravity. So there's probably a property on this MacBook that doesn't have a drop. So it has a fixed position. We also have to actually need to, for that geometry or everything that's attached to that MacBook, we're going to go down here after selecting it and go on to physics based on visibility fused, and we can hit dynamic. So with that, it's actually embedded with physics. And if we hit play, you still don't see a drop, but I'll add in here. We can always go to the top toolbar and add some more geometries. So I'll add in a cube to show you what I mean. So if we set that cube to dynamic and it has a weight, once we hit play, it drops her off. So there's probably some property embedded with a laptop already. It doesn't have to make it drop. But rather than physics, we can have it spin. So we can go, after selecting that, basically the group title for that laptop, we can go over to the right and go to states. So you can create a new state, and that's just basically a new position for it. So our base state has been saved from the moment that I hit that button, and now we're in the new state. So any changes I make here, like its position or its rotation, so if I did that and then had it move down onto the surface, there we go. Okay, so basically it falls flat onto the base plane. Then we can add in an event. So this is how we're going to transition from one state to another, essentially creating an animation. So we can do animation, we can do a sound, we can add in an object, we can destroy an object, we can do a bunch of stuff. But the change between states, we'll go to transition and expand that. Go from current to the new state, right? Or essentially the names are base state or state. You can rename them by right clicking. So you can keep track of all your different animations. And it's also set to ease out. We can set it to ease out. We can do a spring motion. We can do a custom Bezier. But yeah, we didn't set any triggers actually. So we do need to set trigger for the event. So it just says start. We'll do it on mouse hover. And now when we play, and I hover my mouse over it, we'll switch it from current to base state, because it's probably... Huh. How'd this work before? Let's get rid of this cube, it's distracting. What am I missing here? We've got the state, and we've got the base state. We've got a mouse hover event over the MacBook. Transition from base state to state. And yeah, sure. Loop it. Well, we can back out of this one and start a new file where we basically have all our primitive versions. So we have a hover interaction template right here. And when I hit play on this one, this is essentially what I intended to have happen with that laptop. When you hover your mouse over it, it spins around. So to reverse engineer this, we look over to the right, we have a base state, we have a state, and then it's set to mouse hover here and transition from current to state using a spring motion. So that can be, you know, just for Flash, but it actually does have some useful implications, like say if you have a map, right? So I had sort of a file up here, but that's fine. Essentially, you could do a different map, or if you have different items here, like we have this street pack, this drag and drop items street pack here. You can have different icons or different things come up, and then on a website, or you can add in an interaction to add in a chat bubble, and essentially have your items, as you hover over them in the animate, display some information. So the 3D area basically becomes, or can become, your UI. There's also, you know, other simpler things like creating games. And it's worth mentioning that Spline is built on, as I understand it, or as I looked into it, the 3JS coding language, which is basically a JavaScript version of how to be able to embed these different Web3 experiences on a pretty well-performing, you know, just in your browser. I mean, browsers on computers have gotten a bit more demanding in their resources as time has gone on. But yeah, you can basically create fun little games, or you can create different animations for different products. So that's kind of how I've been using it. And there's also tutorials built into it, which is just great. Now, a feature I'd love to cover here in the future, if we look at this one product display example, is the AI integrations. So if we take a look at the top bar over here where we add in different shapes, or we can draw with a pen. Not what I intended to do, but we have a little button over here for AI. So it's actually for AI prompting to be able to actually add in things into your scene. So if we take a quick look at that, Spline AI. Been on the wait list for a while now, but you could basically just type in, add some shapes, add in physics, or raise them up, and then rotate them randomly. So essentially you're developing a scene further and further and further generatively, right? Through doing a series of prompts. So here we see is creating a star, adding some interaction, creating a whole little space with an interactive car, doing title sequences. I think like for one-stop landing pages, like where you just have a contact, you redirect somebody with a Discord and you need a web page for that. These are you know, this type, building a sort of landing page like this and having maybe just a UI over it, I think is the best use case for these type of things. So AI transfer style, we can sort of export a render using AI, which I haven't found entirely useful, but when you hit the AI texture, which isn't what we just looked at, but this is what's available now, you'll see it'll kind of add a filter over it. So if I hit clay style, it might do that successfully actually, if it reads that 3D object like that. But it sort of flattens things out, or it's kind of weird when it tries to read that. You can set a light direction. I guess like the light would be from the top. Very smooth shadows. Morning light. Temperature, weather, camera, depth of field. I don't know. There's a bunch of settings here. We'll give that a second to load and see. But yeah, I haven't found it as quite useful, but it is useful when adding in materials. So if I could turn off the AI feature, going up to the top toolbar and hitting back, we can select an object. So if I go over here to the strap, and looks like that strap, let's see, what am I holding on to? Yep, holding on to the top strap here. Try to select this bottom strap. Yeah. So for materials, you have an entire library here, which is pretty neat. It's already built or pre-built. If you scroll down from library, you have different categories. So we could do, let's see, cartoon and outline. That's interesting. I didn't notice that one before. Let's do a fabric. We could do like this light blue fabric. All right. So this is something to consider, is that the UV has to be done properly for your geometry. I mean, that's a whole subject on its own, which will be covered in a separate video on how to basically get Blender objects up and ready for using in Spline. But yeah, I mean, UV mapping on that object is going to be really, really crucial when not just using a color, but using a more refined material. Let's see if perhaps I could use, here's a leather one. Okay, leather seems to apply a little bit better. Still has that radial configuration, but it doesn't look as strange as this one. And all our assets that we start bringing in are all up here stacked at the top. So you can kind of get away with that. And we can edit that material by just clicking on it over here on the right with that object selected. And this will change it for every object that has this material on it. You can add different material layers. So if you wanted to get funky, if I added another one here, I added another color one, but that could be switched to pretty much anything. Now this is starting to run a little bit slow, or am I just not clicking in the right place? Nope, yep. So this is what I was talking about. We can hit AI texture and we can create a texture using the AI prompter. So we could try here to do, let's do like a flexible rubber marble. I don't know, something like that. There's also other samples here. That's not bad. I guess I hit, oh, I could download it so I could continue editing it. I can make it a different size, resolution, I imagine, by going medium. And I can do save as asset. And now with the object selected, I should be able to bring that in as an image. There we go. I gotta get rid of the color up here. Or we can switch this one to a displacement. Yeah, mind you, we're still working with that leather. There we go. So this should be the marble. Whoa. Well, there you see the displacement. It's going off a little bit weird because it should be Simplex Voronoi. Let's use Voronoi for a leather texture. Okay, yeah, displacement, you gotta tweak that quite a bit to get it right. So I'm gonna leave that out for now. We can just remove by going over to the right and clicking X. And then we have this image applied. UV repeat. If we change the scale of it, perhaps I'll get to see it. Repeat clamp. Oh yeah, I wanted to repeat. Crop, no. All right, we're gonna have to move on because that's clearly not. I'm guessing it's still because of the UV. Because if I change it on this one to, or if I just get rid of this material, unlink it. In any case, just building out more basic shapes that don't necessarily have all that strange UV, or having to do some UV editing before you bring it into here, is quite necessary to get these materials to wrap correctly. I believe, I mean, these are all the different tutorials that are there. There is one on toon shading. I have seen this outliner is very cool as well for more of a stylized effect. But yeah, the capabilities here are far and beyond, and there's enough here for you to get creative and maybe incorporate this as a case study or as a project. I'm certainly doing that in this way, incorporating this in my portfolio to kind of show. I mean, there's great use for this, I think, for products or for just visual storytelling, or as just a landing page, again, for something that's maybe like Web3 based or something along the lines of the 3D art community. So yeah, stay tuned for the next video where I basically take a similar scene to this, but we're just going to be working with some shapes, and I'll be taking this from Blender into Spline to basically make out something like something interactive, something that has some of these different aspects built into it, such as hovering animations, such as physics, such as the game controls. Kind of go through all those specific features that you can start adding into it and basically build out a scene. I don't know what it's going to be yet. I'm going to have to do a little creative session and come up with a concept in order to apply all those things and all those tools. But keep the geometry simple. You know, I doubt I'll be doing any characters. But yeah. So I hope this video has kind of shown you what is coming with 3D websites. I don't know that this is going to be normal or used. I think it's going to be more of a much more specific use case and sort of like a niche area. Or who knows, maybe these things get so light, or the next iteration of computing on phones and on internet, if we go from 5G to 6G, and it turns out that we can now start to see every website incorporate a virtual world into it. That would be interesting. But the AI capacities on this, once we come back into Spline and see that hopefully either they roll that out or I've gotten off the wait list, I can showcase some of those AI features. So thanks for watching, and catch you on the next one. Take care.